Immerse in the profound wisdom of the Shandilya Bhakti Sutras, ancient verses, revered as a pinnacle of devotion and spiritual awareness. Under the guidance of His Holiness Swami Jyotirmayananda, plunge into the infinite ocean of this revered scripture. Discover its hidden truths. Embrace its transformative power. Awaken to new realms of divine love and spiritual awareness. The depths are calling. The deeper you dive, the more treasures you'll discover. And now, Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda.
Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om. Revelations to Lord Krishna, the preceptor of the universe, destroyer of the forces of darkness, and bestower of immortality. Shandilya Bhakti Sutras, Sutra number 82 of the second chapter. Mahapatakinam Twaptau. The greatest sinners are entitled to practice the devotion and they can attain liberation. The topic was introduced about sins and how to remove them, because the simple idea in the mind of people that karmas, lots of negative karmas, keep you away from your goal. The mind uses the same logic, the foxy logic. Let me know how many karmas are there. Let me adopt a method that will destroy them faster. Soon a mathematic plan comes to the mind. And to meet that level of mind, sages have condescended to give disciplines. Those disciplines called prayaschitta, expiatory action. Expiatory action is needed for negative karma or something negative you have done and you want to free your conscience and be free of it. If you have done a very minor mistake, like misusing your tongue, when you mean to hurt someone and someone was hurt, you can do a prashchitta. Either you repeat your mantra, one more mala, depending on the seriousness of it, or fast for the day, or ask yourself, what should I like most? And then miss it. All these are very practical methods, and everyone has to choose according to their level. But at the same time, a deeper understanding has to develop. Deeper understanding that first to know that you are not just neutralizing the negative karmas. Even the positive karmas keep you in a state of delusion that I am the doer of those good karmas. Thank God He let me do that. And thank God He will now, based upon those good karmas, will lead me to heavenly enjoyment. I who didn't have wonderful palaces, there I will have a big palace. I will be facing God's celestial residence. Every now and then He will open the door and look. And I, who have done a lot of good karma, I will be placed at the very high level. Those who are good, but not good. They will be a lower level. Imagine the enormous man in the mind. And then comes the question, how long will you enjoy that? You have not attained enlightenment. So your good karma will one day fade away, will be exhausted. Even if it allows you to stay in that condition for a long time. If you say long, how long? Million years are nothing compared. Many souls that are moving in a low level, frogs and rabbits, they are in a way in a greater heaven than people can imagine. They're not concerned with the political situation. They don't watch a stock market. They're not disturbed by themselves by listening to others' woes. The woes here are enough that keep them wowing. So all that, in other words, instinctive world is free of the torment that human being enjoys, rather suffers from. The term enjoyment is also significant. The soul experiences fruit of karma in a pleasant way and in a painful way. Both are described in Sanskrit as enjoyment. Karma bhog. You are enjoying your karma. What I was leading you to understand that from a very practical point of view, negative karmas, sinful karmas one should avoid. And good karmas, charity, helping others, all good karmas that are known, one should continue. But that in itself does not secure your absolute goal, because your intellect is not enlightened. You are keeping account of how much good karma you have done. You're reporting it to the government. That's okay. Also, you have expectations from those people to whom you have helped, at least during Christmas time. I'm making a joke, but just to make you understand that enormous good, what people say good karmas, they have not helped you to attain enlightenment. They have simply helped you to enjoy prosperity that you have not yet enjoyed. Power, prosperity, fame, glory, enormous possibilities. All that you know of prosperity and civilization is just a little pinch in the vastness of the universe. And think of people developing such enormous, inflated ego on the basis of these attainments. So I led you with a simple question about karma, how to end karmas. Took you to the next level, start ending the negative ones, very gross. But come to the next level, raise the bar. Start developing the concept of chitta shuddhi, purity of heart. Along with your good karmas, try to become more involved with practice of integral yoga, more meditation, more satsanga, listening to the insight, listening that gives you insight into Who am I? Ego-based attainments are all sinful from profounder point. Even though enormous good karmas can bring you into enormous levels of prosperity, can dazzle the world. Every billionaire thinks he has dazzled the world until he gets X-rayed. I'm making a joke. You can have enormous prosperity, and suddenly you discover that your own body is not in your control. Or even though you have lived a very good and healthy life, and you have come to that state of success when you are 95, so how long can you hold on to it? All attainments are transient. Karmas, therefore, good karmas should be better than good. Good karmas should direct your mind to love of God. If that is not understood, vast majority of people these days, they think bringing God is something old style. We should be more modernized, you see. Why to put God into everything? But if you don't put God in a proper way, all your attainments are useless. In other words, you do good karmas that allows your heart to invoke God's presence within you, that allows to come into the mind of God that has goodwill for the entire universe. You begin to understand that you are not limited by your body. Body is very little. Your mental horizons are also very little. But the capacity to love within you opens a window to eternity. So therefore, as you bring yourself closer to God, a heart opens, a mystic heart. You realize that you are capable of looking at the world as an affectionate mother would look at babies. Don't take it literally. Otherwise, many people will feel inferiority complex. The idea is that that profound love that you have felt in your small family is not limited there. The light that shone in a little bucket of water as the sun reflects. On the point of the reflected sun, the whole world is nothing but the bucket. Liberation would imply that reflected sun must realize a goodwill that will enlighten all buckets. Why should God give only few things in a bucket? Why shouldn't He give enormous blessings to all souls? If that begins to dawn in you, you must realize God's grace is showering on you. God is your reality. Not a moment you are separated from God. And therefore, the project before the mind is to become God-like, nothing lesser than Him. Led you again to that direction. But the idea I'm leading you to understand that when you begin to develop devotion to God, that devotion begins to diminish your ego identity. Ego has 3 levels: tamasic, rajasic, sattvic. Tamasic ego is always in a state of agitation. Ego is bored if it doesn't listen to something that tragic has happened to the enemies. Tamasic ego wants that type of thrill. tooth for the tooth. Rajasic ego is interested in superficial glories, ostentatious attainments. Rajasic ego wants just empty fame. No matter what you have done, what you are, it doesn't matter. How many people have joined your chit chat? Millions. It gives a sense of such joy. It's tremendous delusion. What do you gain by that? Tattvic ego is transparent. Tattvic ego, the more you attain, more you do, humbler it becomes. Because it is transparency means you don't, if something is extremely transparent before your eyes, even though it's very strong and metallic, it doesn't obstruct your vision. In the same way, ego plays an enormous part in your practical world, but it becomes like a transparent, strong metal. Your vision constantly goes beyond your ego. So therefore, if prosperity comes, you do not sit back inflating your ego. You develop a sense, how grateful am I to God? He wants me to do something. So let's not be quiet. दुख में सुमिरन सब करे, सुख में करे न कोई. Whenever there is some adversity, conflict, people turn to God. But when there is prosperity, they don't realize this is a bigger problem. They don't turn to God. Your prosperity will become a greater prosperity if it inspires you to turn to God. If your adversity inspires you to turn to God, that's not real adversity. It's prosperity in disguise. So, good karmas, moving away from negative karmas, performing good karmas, increasing devotion, increasing transparency in the ego. So much so, the idea, I will enjoy heaven, becomes ridiculous. Who am I to enjoy anything? Seems very wretched. But imagine, river. During the time it is constantly flowing towards the ocean, the river can maintain its ego. Let me go through plains where the wonderful big trees, they bow down to me, and the birds, and I hear enormous chorus. Oh God, give me this type of heaven forever. But the wiser river begins to realize, my goal is to enter the ocean. And the wisest one just enters it and doesn't even know it has entered. Your individuality dissolves. That's your goal. If you begin to think that, oh, what a goal. All you work for your ego and the ultimate goal, you don't even know that you got it. But think of your daily life. Whole day you work, and there comes a time you want to sleep. When you sleep, You are aware of your bed, how it is prepared. You are aware of many things. You look at the watch and say, in 5 minutes, I'm going to sleep. You go on looking at it. 4 minutes, 3 minutes. If you are constantly looking at it, you will never sleep. You go to sleep, but you never know when did you go to sleep. And that's your day-to-day experience. The greatest relaxation comes to you when you don't know, as if you have slipped into a big, vast ocean. That gives you the idea that if sleep is so enjoyable, liberation would be enormously, infinitely more greater than that experience. So even the illusion of having created a lot of good karmas should move away from the mind. If you are in this process, to hold in your mind a mathematical plan, first to figure out how much negative karma do I have. Some people go to astrologers and they themselves don't know it. But they want to do their job. The idea is your karmas, when did you begin creating karma? Your karmas are beginningless. If you exhaust millions of negative karmas, trillions are still waiting for you. So it is not a mathematical reduction of karma. What is needed is reducing your ignorance, reducing your ego. Karmas operate in the realm of relativity. They operate in a dream-like state. When you are experiencing dream, and suddenly mind comes to realize, I must get out of this world. And then they start thinking mathematically how big it is. Should I fly to the north, to the south, to the east? How long will it take? Suppose you happen to be very technically inspired in your dream. Waking up from the dream is the answer. But the waking up from the dream cannot be understood in the language of the dream world. Same way, attainment of enlightenment, you may be led to figure it out by giving symbolic descriptions, but you cannot exactly have the idea until your mind goes through a process of meditation, purity of heart, and so forth. Ultimate goal, therefore, is not to reduce your negative karma, but direct your mind to destroy all karmas, negative, positive. To come to a state of akarma. There is no karma for me because I am the soul. A reflected sun realizes I am the sun. Immediately there dawns upon it, there is no need for me a bucket. No bucket is needed for me, no matter how glorious it may be. That's the state of enlightenment. Shandilya Bhakti Sutras, directing your attention to that level, is called supreme bhakti, supreme devotion. No matter whatever may be your karma, even if you are focused on the negative karmas, when you become sensitive, you realize you are the greatest sinner. Then don't need to go on comparing yourself and measuring others' sinful karmas with yours. You have a whole enormous load from past. But when you have turned towards God, God has no calculating mind. In that area, he is very little down. He has absolutely no calculating mind. A child does many things, nasty things, according to his understanding, becomes exceedingly frightened and hides in corners when sees the mother coming. The mother is worried where my child is gone. And the child, worried mother, will see me full of black on the face. Imagine the two types of situation. The child has to know, no matter how black is his face, to the mother, he is the most beautiful in the whole world. Once you have turned to her with that sensitivity of a baby, then mother's heart melts. Then God is the mother. Therefore, the question of calculating karmas, how many hindrances do I have? That block I have removed, that block I have to remove. On the top of it, there is another block, and if I know a bigger style of mathematics, you'll be dealing with much more enormous complexity. The simple plan I have explained to you of liberation, Godward movement, given by the Gita, called Uttarayana, northern path. Agnir Jyotirah Shukla Sanmasha Uttarayanam. First stage, fire. Fire is Vairagya goes on developing. Vairagya is detachment. You come to an understanding that the world cannot hold you. You are like the sky. The sky should not be afraid of clouds. Clouds have no power to hold you. All karma, sinful, positive, negative, all ramifications of ignorance that exist in the world, they cannot hold you. That sense of becoming free and not being fascinated by earthly goals, all mundane goals, mind has absolutely no interest in. It's just a matter of wisdom. A child is interested because you give toys. And even though the toys are made up of the same matter, they're sugar umbrellas, they're sugar elephants. I'm talking about Indian style. And sugar roaches. Children become interested. They fight over it. But all things are sugar. When they break down and when they are crunched upon, they are nothing but sugar. The entire world is nothing but essentially divine. And all your experiences through conditioned mind, all those experiences are illusory. You are fighting for things that don't exist. So keeping that in view, Vairagya means that you get that understanding that the world will not give you anything substantial because you don't need it. All the skies, all the clouds cannot give anything substantial to the sky. All the illuminations of the earth cannot compare with the sun. The sun doesn't need the gift of light. Though in rituals, people put light before the sun. That understanding dawns in your heart. Now compare how day-to-day life, how the mind is grieving, full of anxiety. This is what I want. Will I get it? I want to go to the Ganges River, get a plunge into it and wash away at least sins of 3 lives. At least. But on the way, flying with this modern civilization and immense progress of technology, who knows, a terrorist has gone there without anything in their hands. Something magic. I'm also becoming imaginative. So you are also thinking of all the details of the modern problems that you have to face until you go to your destination. So your mind is losing enormous energy. But if you have vairagya, a sense that I am not affected by the world, the body is, the objects are, your mental world and intellectual world, they are all in the realm of Maya. They are affected, they are in the realm of change. But I am is like absolute sky. This vision, as it increases, is called vairagya. That type of vision should come to you by the time you exit the body. But don't wait until the exact time. The next step, vairagya, is viveka. Your intellect now becomes very clear. As vairagya develops, ego does not have the load that it used to carry. It used to be like a donkey, constantly carrying a load of imaginable fears, unimaginable fears. Imaginable fears are enough. So, intellect now you begin to live a life of immense luxury. Because intellect goes on revealing to you, no matter how you appear in the world, little, big, successful, a failure, no matter how you appear, you are ever that Purnam, full. Not only just full, the entire world has emerged from you. Purnamada, Purnamidam. You are full. And see, I'm full, but what can I do with the world? The world makes a fool out of me. But the entire world, your responsibility. All the clouds are supported by the sky. That's simile. All your dream world is sustained by your consciousness. The entire world, the universe, is sustained by your consciousness. Your I am, the real you, doesn't need anything at all. When intellect goes on exploring that immensity of the self, imagine the joy and the thrill of life. Because nothing makes you thrilled so profoundly as your intellect. Intellectual understanding, not intellectualistic, intuitive. When intellect becomes purified, its function is different. Ego doesn't interfere with it. If you have vairagya, if you lack vairagya, the ego goes on interfering with it. Each time you say, this world is illusory, I am Brahman, ego tells you are stupid. Yeah, and you are. You begin to believe in the ego. But as intellect advances, freed of the burden of ego, that sets up a process of real spirituality, real religion. That's what religion is supposed to be, a Godward movement. And then that Viveka aspect is described, Jyoti, the first level, Agni, fire, Vairagya develops. Jyoti, now there is effulgence. Intellect shines with it. The third word is used, aha, daylight. It's a mystical term. You live a life of light day by day. It's not like you have every day. To many people, each day is squeezed by 2 nights. To few, each night is squeezed by 2 days. Figure that out. You move from the first level to the second level. You have more expression of light, more confrontation of light, day by day. But normally, every positive experience that people get, their mind builds up more stress. Before getting the positive experience, why was so delayed? Why didn't you get it before? There's one squeeze. The other squeeze, how long can I hold on to it? So, each daytime should be enjoyed. But during the day, half of the day, you think of the night that you suffered through. And the other half, you are thinking of what will be my experience in the next night. The joy of the day is gone. If you figure that out, then you will understand that. In other words, as mind begins to focus on God, you develop positive mind, a mind that is not constantly moving to negative, optimistic, but optimism based on profound insight. In a practical way, your intellect advances, your mind gains immense strength, irrespective of the age of your body. And your action continues, good action. If physically you can't do by your hands and feet, you inspire people. Great sages created Upanishads. They didn't have typewriter, they didn't have the modern equipments. And yet they created things that with all the modern equipments, people can hardly bring out that quality. How many Gitas have come up? Now we come to next level. bhavana, heart, your feelings of your heart are not squeezed by narrow-mindedness, cruelty, pig-headedness. Feeling of your heart has no limit. Good feeling comes to people only now and then. Sometimes you have to calculate when people come, loved ones will come 2 years later, how wonderful it will be. You're calculating how many conveniences you will give to them, what gifts will you give. Days and nights are involved, imagining, dreaming. Until then, your good feeling is just very limited. And when actually people come, you realize all your expectations cannot be fulfilled. Now comes a time, the experience of good feeling is no longer dependent upon worldly achievements, no longer dependent upon people's recognition of you. It's yours. And it goes on because you and God. No one in the whole world can dare go in between. Therefore, your possibility is enormous. Feeling, therefore, advances. Thrill of highest form of life. Bhakti bhavana. It is that feeling that has inspired great writings. Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bible, all great writings. Feeling that brings cosmic love in human heart without breaking the heart. You gain insight into the immense sufferings, but it has no impact upon your physical heart. In a limited state is other way around. Even before you can really think of how to help others, your heart begins to crack because you have so much love. And that pain of others has become yours. And surprisingly more than others have. Try to work that out, because there's a big confusion in the world. People always inspire others. Experience the sufferings of others. Your heart should melt. It should be on fire when you see people suffer. Not that way. If your heart is on fire with love of God, your compassion will be dynamic. You will exhibit an experience from a human level. Great suffering. See, the mother experiences and expresses great suffering when she sees a child not behaving well or coming into some type of trouble. But the mother doesn't allow her heart to fail. In that love of a mother, that suffering is practical. In that time, if you understand that is what compassion is, great sages have tender love for people. They can express intense love which even mothers and parents can't show. But their love is not moha type, delusion type. Their love is not meant to keep people restricted. A mother bird loves its kid, its baby. And the baby is hatching out of the egg. And the mother says, "Tut, I love you so much, stay there in the egg." There's more. the higher love, come out, spring. And the mother watches. In a very short time, when the baby has started its wings, etc., the mother now and then pushes so that it can exercise the wings. So that nature teaches you. So here I was telling about expansion of good feeling. And feeling is a wonderful term, and you have to go on working upon it. Day by day, you are faced into different situations. When someone shouts at you, you expected a kind of reaction which was pleasing to your mind, and you find a different reaction. And many times human feeling gets affected. All this presents as a challenge to your mind to understand if my mind is flowing towards God, if my mind is understanding God's presence in everyone, then why should the mind become affected? If it becomes affected, that state of pain in the mind should not cloud the intellect. If you are walking by and your foot is affected by a little brick or stone, it's okay, your toes can swell up. But that doesn't affect your profounder level. Same way, dealing with practical world, the idea is not to become cold like brick, not to be affected by people. The idea is to become so overwhelmingly divine that everything seems to affect you, and at the same time, you are beyond. And the effect that you receive brings an answer, what to do about it. A positive response. How can I serve people to relieve their misery? A grosser illustration, the whole world is like a big hospital. The patients fight with themselves. Why are you crying in the middle of the night? Cry another time. But if a doctor also were to develop that type of idea of shouting at patients because of their abrupt nature, then what type of doctor will that be? Try to understand, therefore, that's the role of human being who is moving towards God. Not to view the world in the terms of ordinary judgment, that this person is demoniac, or that person is good, all that ordinary. Rather understand that every situation presents to you with a challenge. Challenge is recognize divine in the person. Don't hate a person. If a person is negative, be away with him, from him. But you don't go on looking for where he is in order to hate him. Or to hit him. So bhavana vikas, that's the beauty of life, not the wealth, not what you have gained, not how many things you have eaten and how many places you have gone. All that's nothing. How much your heart has enjoyed developing profound love. How much your intellect has developed clarity, shining with spiritual wisdom. And how much your soul has broken the barriers of illusion. Shanamasa Uttarayanam, after that the scripture describes the northern path. Northern path means daylight goes on increasing. That's from the March onwards until June. Daylight goes on increasing. This is symbolic of your consciousness goes on expanding. Otherwise, your consciousness is always under great limitation. The highest state of expansion of consciousness is absolute loss of the world of Maya. Look at a lake. You are seeing a whole drama going on inside the lake in reflections. Suppose, imagine there is some soul trapped in that reflected world. When will that reflected soul attain liberation? When the entire drama that reflects in the lake moves away, and there is nothing but the lake. Did anything happen in reality? Nothing. You didn't do anything different to the lake. All the time, reflections were always unreal. All your experiences are reflections. Again, this is a figurative word. Therefore, even greatest sinners have that potentiality to destroy all karmas the moment they have turned their steps to bhakti, devotion, surrender to God, and coming under the guidance of spiritual preceptor. Saikanta bhavi gitartha pratyab vijnanat. The Gita statement of Krishna is being quoted by Shandilya Maharshi. Manmana bhava mad bhakta madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yuktaivam atmanam matparayana. Manmana bhava. Allow your mind to become blended with the mind of God. Allow your thoughts always to be consumed by divine presence. Things that you think of, you don't know them. It's still God thinking about it. And when it's necessary you should think of God, say, I don't know him. How can I think of God whom I don't know? But all your thoughts are about things that you don't know. Let's figure that out. Allow your mind, build up that type of hobby for your mind. And whenever you have occasion, time, instead of go on thinking about the things you don't know, and yet you know that they are going to terrify you, turn your mind to think God. Without developing the idea, I don't know. And allow your mind to build up that understanding that you are turning your mind to God, who is the source of the entire universe, the mother of the world. All gracious qualities shower from him. And if you say, well, suppose God didn't exist, what harm has happened to you if he didn't exist? Anyway, you are enormously of a mind that was full of joy. The manmana bhava, that's term. Allow your mind to be soaked by God. Mad bhakta, allow your heart to expand and hold God within your heart. Madhyaji, all your actions should become a sacrifice, an enormous sacrifice. Sacrifice, the simple description of a sacrifice is always you pour something into fire. Very gross form of sacrifice, you kill animals, goats, etc. and sacrifice. the higher interpretation, why to go on killing innocent animals? Kill the goat in you. Kill the animal in you by process of sublimation. Anger is sacrificed, love emerges. Pride sacrificed, humility emerges. Insecurity is sacrificed, a sense of security emerges. See that your life goes on sacrificing all these big animals, little animals, even the roaches. That's yajna. Madhyaji, the term yaji comes from the same yajna term. Your life should be a perpetual sacrifice. With God as your target, automatically you enjoy removing weaknesses from your personality, strengthening yourself in your deeper level, day by day. If that has happened, your hand, your heart, your head, all have become involved in a Godward movement. Then your whole personality bows down to God. Mam namaskuru. And once God sees anybody bowing down that way, he can't. His heart can't tolerate it. He just bends down. And devotee and God become blended, one. And with this we conclude. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of spiritual growth. It's an honor to learn from the wisdom of Swami Jyotirmayananda. As we part for now, remember, the quest does not end. Take time to reflect on today's insights and integrate them into your life. Until next time, stay open, stay curious, stay present. The light within you is always shining.